Hello and welcome to the Plone Newsroom. Your guests, your hosts, as usual, are Fred van Dijk from Rotterdam. And
Hi. And Philip Bauer from Munich, I assume, in Germany.
There was a test. You passed the test. So this is episode 15, recorded on April 24th, 2023. And yeah, it's a podcast about Plone, if you don't know that already. That's weird. And yeah, we're available on audio and video. Video obviously on YouTube and audio on any podcast player. We have a small web corner on plone.org/newsroom.
Yes, we do.
And yeah, so what are our topics today, Fred? What are we gonna talk about?
Mainly, as Newsroom, we've got 3 Plone releases made since the last time we recorded our podcast. Some upcoming sprints. And there's, of course, this week, and that's why we must say we're doing it a bit like this, because there's a World Plone Day coming up again this year. And we're still also busy preparing talks and videos and helping with that. So we're doing a bit of live interaction now and see how far we can get with the Newsroom.
Yeah, that's true. So this is Monday, and we were all both sick at different times, so it was hard to find a time for a recording. But yeah, so this is our World Plone Day, at least my World Plone Day contribution. You're giving a talk also. You'll tell us later, or you shouldn't, because it's World Plone Day. People should listen to that. So
yeah, so indeed, people will see this first time, a bit like our last year's surprise thingy to bring another Plone Conference thing, where we did a presentation on Plone Conference. We'll air this one first as a part of the reels of World Plone Day. World Plone Day is an event that I think before the whole internet video and other hype, World Plone Day was really centered around local events organized by Plone users, by Plone integrators. The last 10 years, and I think now especially since COVID, things has moved online, and we now have a 24-hour presentation reel of all things Plone, which can be local talks, which can be technical talks, user group talks, use cases, and we're also invited. So if you're seeing this, happy World Plone Day.
That's true.
In 2 days, because we did pre-record this, because otherwise we would go insane.
Yeah. So in the past, World Plone Day was fun. We had a couple of World Plone Days in Munich, and one year I think we had 4 different World Plone Days in Germany alone. One in Berlin, one in Munich, and one in Hamburg and somewhere else. So that was really, really good. And lots of other places around the world. Obviously, that's a lot of organizational effort to book a venue, invite people. We actually had posters made, and we had people flying into World Plone Day Munich because we had an interesting schedule at one point, not the only one. At many World Plone Days, everything was interesting, but one year was very interesting. We actually had people flying in from Finland and France and from the north of Munich, even though they had a World Plone Day themselves in Hamburg, but we had the better schedule. So
yeah. So this year's World Plone Day, not to spoil the surprise, because I don't know if it's how big the surprise is, but the people in Brazil, the community there, has a local event, and they are inviting a very special guest. Indeed, what you said with moving people and bringing people in. But indeed, the recent years, World Plone Day has moved a lot online, and I can tell you, I volunteered the marketing team last year, so I got sucked into the organization now a bit as well in helping out. I think not to underdo what else, but I know that this year again, Eriko and Ricky-Pekka are very busy organizing and the schedule and the videos coming in and uploading. So I'm lending a hand there and trying to figure out a bit how it works and assist them a little bit. But for them, it's a really major event. Yeah, and also other people of the marketing team.
Thanks to all of them who are working on that.
Other people of the marketing team are helping.
You just submit a talk and they say, hey, please upload your video there, or here's your link, and then you can do it live. So it's really no hassle for people giving a talk. Whereas for Rico Pekka and Eriko and the others organizing, that's a major effort, obviously.
Yes, but what we also do, if you're hesitating to submit a talk for now, for this year's World Plone Day, it will be a bit tight schedule, too late to say.
Next year.
Yeah, but what we also provide is that if you're a bit unsure about how to record this stuff, we have a nice online video platform where we can, for example, also do it like we're doing now in interview style. And there's a nice talk with Sally, also a marketing member, who's going to interview Guido Stevens today. In 2 days.
Nice.
This is all Inception. I've seen that movie once, and now my time schedule in my head is totally wrong. But they do a very nice interview where Guido explains about what's up with Quave, recent features added. So that's also an interview style video talk you can do, and you can ask the marketing team for assistance with that for maybe next year.
And there's something I really have to watch to see what's up with Quave. Is it still alive? Yeah, obviously it is.
It's very alive.
Strong. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
I know that, but I'm not using it because we sucked at selling it. Just personal failure, not the fault of Quave. But you have some personal news.
Yes.
So no.
I got married. No, I'm happy in a happy relation, as you know. No, I kind of. Well, you could put it that way. I started working part-time for Kid Concept starting this month. So I'm now working 3 days a week for Zest still. And I'm also started working 2 days part-time for Kid Concept. And I went to Germany last week I would say to meet my new colleagues. But that's a bit besides the point, because I've known these people and many of them are my friends now for years now, meeting them at sprints, meeting them at conferences, meeting them at the Beethoven sprint. So it was it was not a difficult decision to make when the opportunity showed up. They can need a hand with, especially now, some project management and DevOps. So that's where I'm going to try to help them.
5 days working, that sounds not very Dutch to me. I have the impression that Dutch people only work not 4 hours a day and 4 days a week. But 4 days a week, I heard that's very common in the Netherlands.
Yes, it is. It is, or at least lowering your 40 hours to something like 36 or 32, indeed. But we are also really strong in part-time. Part-time in the Netherlands is really a thing. To the you could say it even gets a bit too messy, I would say, with working part-time in the Netherlands. If you have to split a job in over three persons, and I'm not talking about RRT jobs, but for example, you also see it in teaching. And in other areas, then Netherlands is part-time is a big thing.
Yeah, I love part-time because it's very good against burnout. I'm not a part-time person. I work not permanently, but I work, I think, too much. But sometimes you need not only a timeout, but just to reduce your workload, especially your community workload, if it conflicts with your business tasks that you have as well. Tiberio, he just took a time out from his Tiberio Ichim. He's taking a time out from his Plone contributions and Volto. I wish him all the best with his time out. I hope it's nothing serious, but we're hoping that you'll come back and we'll open. I don't know. We'll embrace you with open arms when you're coming back. And I hope your timeout is helpful, whatever the reasons may be.
Yes, because when you put it up, I know that ODWeb has been working very hard where Tiberio works for. Because a few weeks ago, the last of the main site of one of their biggest customers, the European Environmental Organization, their main site is now fully Volto. They've been working on that for 2 years. A colleague of Tiberio, Aline, announced that on the Volto team meeting. So we will have a nice news item and another marketing for that on the Plone.org website shortly. But that's one of that's a really big endeavor.
So they moved it's not that one site. It's a huge organization with so many subsites, different sites.
Yes, but this is the main site.
They're all moving to Volto. Yes, everything they do is moving to Volto, and they're still finding time to maintain some stuff that the community uses in the classic stack, like EEA faceted navigation, which is super important for many classic sites. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Whatever.
go to the real news. The real
news.
real other news where I've also been involved, but then only on the lower layer. The Plone Conf website is live.
Excellent.
And it's a beautiful
PloneConf.org.
website. It's a beautiful website.
Yeah, it's Drupal, or is it WordPress with you?
No, it's again Volto.
Boring. So
Let's see.
check out the website PloneConf.org and book your travels.
I'll share the screen
many
here.
hotels.
It's too nice. It's too nice.
I love the cow. It's a nice town in a valley, a bit. It's not directly at the sea, but it's not far. It's between San Sebastian and Bilbao, and yeah, it's going to be gorgeous.
Travel. Look, they've got a page about that.
Yeah, regarding travel, if you go to a travel store and ask them train travel there, they're going to say this town doesn't even exist probably. But there is a town at the border between France and Spain. On the French side, I don't know what name it is, but you can find it on the map. It's easy. And there is a very fast TGV, which is the French fast train connection from Paris. It's like 4.5 hours from Paris, and from there you can take a local train to the conference location, which is certainly the route which I'm going to take.
Yes. So my involvement with the site was providing some system resources and providing the CI/CD for the website configuration setup together with Erico. For the rest, the people of Code Syntax built this beautiful website in Volto with some nice custom blocks and layout. Accommodation info is all there, and it looks very, very, very slick.
Good.
So that's the first news item.
Yeah. So we also had a bunch of Plone releases as usual, because we have monthly releases of Plone 6. And while we are speaking, you need to check, but I haven't reloaded my browser yet. But while we're speaking on Monday, obviously, Maurits is doing the final release of Plone 604, which is the release date is today. But we also, since the last episode, we had 603, which was done in March.
Yeah.
Bunch of bug fixes. We'll go into that later. Are you doing the other video with Maurits during Plone?
Yeah, because that's also, so it's another inception moment here. So what happened? So Maurits is of course a long-standing colleague of mine. He started working a little bit, I think, 4 or 5 months earlier than me when he started working at Zest. So we've been colleagues for years. And Maurits is now our beloved Plone release manager. And Maurits, I know you always do a lot of work. Wouldn't it be cool for World Plone Day if we could record your releasing? And he was like,
boring.
Well, no, he was getting a bit like okay, that's a lot of work, many details, and my screen. It was no, Maurits, I just want to let others see. To let other people see, and if they want to know, I mean, you don't have to watch it, but to see what's involved in there, how the parts connect, what you do. So and he I must say, first a bit reluctantly, but he agreed. And indeed, last Friday, because with release process, we always have kind of release candidates or a soft release. So what we did last Friday afternoon, Maurits prepared already some stuff beforehand, and in 1.5 hours he talked me through to actually doing the release live at the moment. So if you see this on a Wednesday at World Plone Day, then I'm now announcing on Monday that we will air a recording taken on Friday with the soft release. But the actual 604 final was also indeed released this afternoon, so we can talk about it later. And I must say,
I see it was released at 2 p.m. 45. So if you depend on the constraints txt or requirements txt and the versions, it's all there, and the packages. That means also the packages are on Pipey. Pipey, and you can install and download
Yes.
it. That means I have to update the Startflow builder this evening and update the demo sites and all the things that happen after a Plone release.
And before that, me or Eric or somebody will have to create the new images, because those are also following for there before you can do that. So that's also a story.
Since the demo sites now use the Docker images, that is a dependency.
Yes. So that talk, if you see this, if you see our video here, also check out the Plone 604 release video, because indeed what you said, if you're curious how this constraints.txt and this version CFG is generated and how it ends up on this.plone.org and what the whole thing is, really listen to Maurits showing us, and I'm interviewing and asking Maurits. I'm trying to ask some smart questions and to keep things going. And I must say I was surprised. I thought I knew most of it in general, and then suddenly he started. It's like, okay, that's why you're doing the release. I was really flabbergasted. What's this step? So it's interesting, it's detailed, it's nerdy, but it's really interesting if you're curious about the amount of work it takes to make a Plone release.
You already survived
all the details.
Watching that while you listen to us. So what's in the new releases? So what's in the 603 and 604?
Yeah, so
what are some highlights?
indeed.
Pick
so
some.
So we had 603. Where's my? Oh, I have to find my
March
notes.
27.
There it is again. Yes, and because we did 602 the last time, so we had March. Cache. I know Erico and others have been working on adding better cache support, especially for the Volto front end in the latest releases. And that means if it's Volto, it means we have to add also those features or those information in Plone REST API. So Plone REST API has gotten some updates to have better cache control, and also to, I think, to set cache settings or to have the control panel there.
Yeah, I saw a lot of dependency nonsense was cleaned up in both releases, and Jens was proudly showing sharing a image of his thing that resolves all the dependencies and highlights the how's it called? Circular dependencies that we need to get rid of. So we're slowly approaching the point where we have no circular dependencies, but we're not there yet, not even in 604.
But
there's one thing that is close to my heart in the Volto part of that release, because the corresponding Volto release is 16.18.
Yes.
And what made it in is finally the teaser block is now part of Volto Core. Obviously, everyone has been using the source checkout or the add-on version of the teaser block, and now it's shipped with that. I'm really happy about that finally making it into the Volto release. So that's great news.
We could have done a demo, but we'll do it next time.
Yeah,
promise. Because this is only one of the first blocks that should go into core, because I mean, Volto has been released with Plone 6, but it has been a bit of a lean release when you look at blocks, and blocks are really the shining part where you can really extend a Volto Plone website with extra functionality. The teaser block is one. Work is still being done on the grid block, which takes another separate discussion. But indeed, a teaser block is now one of the first ones as kind of what was seen as the extra block that now moves into core. And it's not unlike what we done with Plone for the last 20 years, but many Plone features have also been developed first as add-ons, and then they get moved into core when they're stable enough, and people in general think, like, look, this is so generic. Why have a separate add-on for that?
Also, you have some time to get less excited about what you just wrote, because at that moment it's like, this is so cool, I did that, and everybody needs to use that. And after a year or a while of that living as an add-on, you get a little distance, and then you realize, this is also pulling in these crazy dependencies that we'll have to maintain forever and ever and ever into the future, and it has technical debt and stuff. So it's a really good idea to not push it into core at the first appearance in the world.
It's indeed a good timeline filter for that as well. Yeah. So another few Plone 603 highlights.
Let's move to 604.
But no, I've got 603 stuff.
It's
Because no, I have to mention this one.
boring.
No, it's boring. No. So there was a lead. I think also David Glick worked on that. There's been some improvements in the Russell or in the development proxy server, and that's really important because that has bitten people and bitten me as well personally
Yes,
a few times.
It has.
So that is now more stable in 603. 604 highlights. So again, some updates to the caching rule sets, and there was one tiny. I explained it to you when we talked this earlier. There's this one line I said, what's that? Add UID to relation value converter, and I was like, wait a minute, I kind of requested or asked for that one. So what happens?
Who wrote it?
Actually, Maurits did it because it was just adding one parameter to a query call. But what now happens is that if in Plone REST API, if you serialize a relation field, it's now also outputting the UID. And why do we need it? We need this for collective export import, or actually for a feature of collective export import that we've been talking a lot about, and I'm kind of experimenting with now. We have this chicken and egg problem with a collective export import, where it's all nice and shiny when you import the whole tree now of content items. But as soon as there are also relations, content items have fields, and also all those fields can also be supported. Even custom content types have automatically all their fields converted to JSON and then imported again in a Plone site and get it deserialized. A problem arises when you have relations. So when you have a relation on a news item to another page, but you first import that news item and the other item to which you refer the relation is somewhere way down the content tree, then you can't restore that relation. Because
that's why it's a separate step now that it has to be done. And the idea to defer that is to put it all in annotations and resurrect that information later. That's an approach that we're willing to.
Yeah, and I was testing that approach and doing some stuff like 2.5 months ago on a branch somewhere locally. Nobody can see me, and I was missing the UID. I got it converted, and I didn't have the UID, so I put it somewhere. Put a note. Maurits later helped me and said, "Look, it's just a one-liner over there." It took some while, and now I'm seeing it back again when I'm reading the Plone 604 release notes. Like done, it's in there. Okay, where's my branch? I need to continue, because that's, and we will talk about it a bit more. That importing is important to have those relations restored nicer. Another thing for classic UI, which will be in 604, which is also interesting because I know it got fixed like last week Friday, and also even a bit last weekend. There have been some issues with using Mosaic in 604 Classic, where we found out that sometimes the tiny MCA widgets don't initialize properly. And it's been Johannes Ragam worked on this, Peter Maltese worked on this, Franco Pellegrini put in some notes also back in January already. And we figured out, Johannes figured out some places where this might need a fix. And I think that got in just nicely just before the final. So Maurits made a soft release on Friday. Some other fixes and packages were done, and Maurits added those. And the final release from this afternoon should have at least some of those fixes in there. So if you were having some issues with Mosaic in Plone 6, check out the 604 release.
That's good to hear, because I'm just deploying a site for a client with Mosaic on Plone 6. I missed that issue because they haven't tested that feature yet, but they would have run into that. But there's more. There is I just misscrolled. There's stuff in Volto which I'm happy about.
Yes, I wrote it down this afternoon. I think this is something we worked on like 2 years ago in the relation sprint already. Yeah. We had a small relation sprint 2 years ago.
That part was not finished. For Classic, that was all finished and really nicely done. A static catalog vocabulary, which is a nice feature where you can very specifically specify which content of which type, where, at which state is possible to be selected as a target for a relation field. And then you can use that configuration that's in the schema where I think it belongs, and use that information for any different kind of widget, because that was always only possible with the relation widget in former times, which is really annoying if you have one item here and one item there, and they can both be related to, but you need to, how do you find them when you only have the relation widget? You don't have a nice, and now you can have radio boxes, select lists, autocomplete lists, whatnot. And now this support for this has finally landed in Volto, and thank you very much for whoever worked on that. Who did that?
I think Katja worked on that.
Excellent.
Yes, yes.
I know.
I forgot to copy. I forgot to
the
copy
endpoint.
it, but she was working on the endpoint. Yeah. So,
is so
I know.
cool.
I know you had this like nice example content type add-on that shows a lot of the relations in there. But indeed, we had it kind of partly finished or mostly finished for the classic UI widgets, but there was an issue with the Volto widgets.
Yeah.
And now that part has been rounded as well. So now you can finally indeed use that instead of having the relations widget using. If you know that there are only indeed what you said, like 4 or 5 items in the site, then you can just have a normal drop-down menu, for example, to select
Exactly.
those.
Or I actually like radio buttons. If you're like one of 4 departments and you need a relation at the end, that required a lot of hand coding in the past.
And something else photo related, I'm not sure I'm going to put this right, but we are now having the option to have themes in add-ons. And there's a lot of work under the hood, also going to the next Plone 7 release already, but also now in Plone 6.1, where all kinds of use cases for Volto are now pitched like, but can't we also have this? Or architecturally, can't we move or shuffle around configuration like that? And one of those things is now that, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I understand the ticket correctly, previously, if you wanted to add something to a theme, you always added that to a Volto project. You had a Volto project; it had a theme directory, and in there you had a lot of you had all your modifications to the default Volto theme. What you can now do is also have most of or all of the theme-related information in an add-on, and that allows you to create an add-on as a plugin and then reuse that theme in multiple sites. And that's apparently something that wasn't possible before, but which now has landed also already in Volto 16. I think it will definitely be a feature for Volto 17 or later, but it has now also been added, maybe even backported, I'm not sure. But this is really cool that you can now indeed have everything theme-related just as an add-on, and you don't have to stick it or into the Volto main project.
Yeah, we talked about the Volto, the slimmer Volto configuration approach the last podcast, and I'm very anxiously looking forward to that being like finally finished and documented, and so we can use that, because previously it was like 150 or 200 lines of JSON, package JSON, and now it's just down to, you can, I think, 20 lines and you're done. That is really, really good.
And just to show off a little bit what they've done really well as well, is that English? Really well as well? Is documenting it. So I checked the issue, and I also saw a lot of changes to the documentation, and it's all fully documented here in our upcoming Plone 6 documentation. So that's really cool to see an issue, and it's also documentation for this has also already been added to the.
That's impressive, because we not only traditionally suck at documenting stuff, we're so proud at programming it, showing it, and then use it, but you read the code if you really want to understand what's happening, because the documentation is TBD, to be done.
Well, actually, there's a lot. I know that there's a lot of work has been done on documentation. Also, this month and previous months, we're going to have dark mode very soon into the documentation, and we're also going to have better. Wait! That's contributing to Plone. If we're now sticking here. This has also been last one. Thanks to Steve Percy, who collected a lot of our previous contributing information, which is now has gotten his own section contributing to Plone, where you can see a special section for contributing for first-timers, with explanations about the contributor agreement, contributing to the documentation, and then we have separate sections for Volto, and we're also going to add an extra classic UI classic section here later.
The updated theme with the dark mode is already deployed on training Plone.org. So if you want to play around with that,
That was yes.
Plone.org.
Sorry, I'm mixing up indeed. Trainingplone.org had already activated the new theme as well. Let's show it. Ooh. Shall I do it back?
Very nerdy.
It doesn't have the slow 4-second.
Nice. Yes, sunrise. Okay, we also have a quarterly Plone 5.2 release. This time is 5.2.12 that happened on April 21st, like 3 days ago today, for us at least. Bunch of bug fixes, including Turkish translations, and yeah, what's very important, there's a nice. I really love that.
That's a quality of life thing
in the setup, site setup screen that shows you when you're using an unsupported Plone or Python version, because you can still run Plone 5.2 on Python like 3.5 or 3.6, and these are no longer supported by the Python Foundation. So they have run out of security support, and you should not use them anymore.
Yeah, so this is something that people do again and again, and I will show you why. This is JenkinsPlone.org. This is our testing server, which we use for continuous testing and integration, and not delivery. This part, that's going somewhere else. But indeed, Plone 5.2, because this is the release that still has to support Python 2.7 if you want to do in-place migration. Plone 5.2 is not tested on anything higher than Python 3.8. And that's not because we don't want to, but because the Plone 5.2 series uses SOAP 4, and SOAP 4 really has some very nasty edge cases when you move that to SOAP 5. So, long story short, if you really want to be sure, don't run Plone 5.2 on Python 3.9 or Python 3.10. And maybe it works, maybe you don't hit those edge cases, but the story behind it is, this is our test matrix here, and we just don't test Plone 5.2. And also from the other changes in this quarterly release, Plone 5.2 is slowly going to end of support. At the end of this year, it will be only 1 year of really security-related bug fixes that will be done. But normal bug fixes will also not be added anymore to Plone 5.2. Plone 6 is now our preferred release, and you should slowly start moving to Plone 6.
Slowly? All of my current projects are running in Plone 6.
Thank you, Philip.
Yeah. Okay, we have. This is about releases. We have some upcoming events. Obviously, World Plone Day. This is today. But there's more. There's the Beethoven Sprint that's happening in May 15 to 19 in Bonn. It's booked out, so sorry if you want to come. You can join online. Obviously, there's always the option to participate as an online participant, and there's stand up is online, so you can do that. But the office of Kit Concept is not that huge, so we're already booked out for that one. And Fred, we're going to meet each other there.
We're going to meet each other there. And to put a bit of history to it, so Beethoven Sprint started already in 2017, and the historical announcement there on the Kit Concept website is still there. A strategic Plone sprint on the headless CMS. And that was in 2017. Yeah. So I checked, I think this is now the 4th or the 5th run of the Beethoven Sprint in Bonn. Philip, you're a historian. What's special about Bonn?
Bonn used to be the capital of the German, of Western Germany, the GDR, and no, not G. I can't remember how it's called in English.
I'm surprising you. I'm surprising you there.
The GDR was the eastern part.
Yeah.
The Federal Republic, whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. So
but indeed,
it's a small town next to Cologne, which is a big city. But it's really nice. It has great pubs, nice people, nice inner city with shopping and cafes and whatnot. And it's May, so it's in the high spring. It's a great time to be outside and meet people from the Plone community.
Yes.
And it's strategic. We're going to talk about why that is at the later subject. But we have another sprint.
Yeah.
There is
Let's switch to that one.
In a town that is hard to pronounce. It's Jyväskylä. It's in Finland. It's called the Midsummer Sprint, and the reason for that is because it's in midsummer. And there's something really special about that, because I attended the Midsummer Sprint in 2017 at the same location. So we went one night. We had a barbecue at a lake. And we went home at 2:00 at night, and it was still light outside. So the sun kind of sets, but it never gets dark. So that was really new for me, who lives in an area where the sun obviously sets every day.
I only had that in Stockholm many years ago when I had an exchange with my when I sang in a choir, and we had an exchange with a choir, and we went to Stockholm, and there also, and it messes up with your mind, because we went for a walk outside at around 10 in the evening, and it got dusk. It got a bit darker, and we were like walking. We got back. It was like, oh, we're walking. Yeah, it's 1:30, but it just stops. No, but it stops. It stops at getting a bit darker, but it doesn't get fully dark. It just stays there, and you stay awake yourself. You don't notice you've been walking for 2 hours.
I guess everybody.
And that was Stockholm.
Jyväskylä
is even further up.
Been there that far north or that far south on this planet. For me, that was the first time in Jyväskylä, and was a weird and amazing and great experience. So if you have time, go there. Rico Pekka's organizing the sprint at the University of Jyväskylä with his team. A bunch of people are coming. That's a great location to go. If you find the time, I highly recommend going.
Yes, I'm really curious because there was a sprint that got cancelled in Finland many years ago, and I wanted to go there, and that was cancelled. So I'm really trying to get to this one instead now. Really want to go a bit further up north in Scandinavia. I really like the Scandinavian countries. So that's the Jyväskylä sprint. What shall we do, Philip?
Yeah, so at the sprint in Bonn, at the Beethoven sprint, that is a strategic sprint. That's how it's called. And I want to discuss with you a little about what is strategic for Plone. Obviously, that is highly subjective. In no way like the official. There's no official list of things that are strategic. But I think it's worth thinking about what that might constitute before you start putting in lots of hours into something that your heart is close to. In no way I want to tell people what they should work on. Obviously, that's their own decisions. But I want to share what I think about before I start a project, or I contribute to something, or when I go to a sprint, what topic I pick that I want to work on. And there are a couple of things that are for me always boxes that need to be checked, or that should be checked. Obviously, if I really fancy something, I want to learn something new, I can pick whatever I like. But if I know that there's very limited time, and I'm burning for Plone, and I want to improve Plone in some way, these boxes need to be checked for the stuff that I'm doing. And the easiest box to check for something that is a strategic, or you could also say high impact task, is it should improve approachability of Plone. And that's always also something that it's very general, so it could be
approachability.
That is increase the font or the search engine ranking of the Plone.org website. It's a super valid task, and it doesn't require any hard coding. But that is this. If you look at that, like approachability and high impact, that means everything that is strategic should in some way, at some point, increase the market share of Plone without being because I really suck at that. Direct marketing, like writing marketing copy. That is excellent, and I love people doing that, but I'm really bad at that. So I pick my more technical things, but I pick them in a way that they improve the approachability and the visibility and the market share of Plone. That is how I approach these things.
You mentioned approachability, Philip, and I had to think about the Pac-Man rule.
Yeah.
That's a basic. It's a basic thing. So I'll do it because I think we did it last year as well. So the Pac-Man rule is when you're at a conference and you're standing with 3 people or 2 or 3 people together, and you stand with each other face to face. It's a bit not intimidating, but it's not attractive. If you're another bystander and you think, hey, those people are chatting about something, should I maybe listen? Is that something interesting? If people are standing with their faces to another, they're not really approachable. So we have this kind of jokingly called Pac-Man rule. If you're standing with 3 people, pretend that there's an open space for a 4th person, so that anybody can join in without feeling themselves without feeling themselves being pushy. There's always an open spot to also join a conversation or just listen and also contribute.
And that's, we're not only being nice in a way as approachable using the Pac-Man rule, but we have an ulterior motive, because we want to include people, to have more people contribute and be part of Plone, the project and the community. It's not like we want people to think that we're nice. We're trying to suck in these people, and this is a way to be approachable. If you're not approachable, you're not gaining new developers, obviously.
Yep.
So that a lot of things hang on that. And a very simple example, but sometimes really hard to make, is the beginner developer experience. Improving the experience for beginning developers, how to get started developing with Plone. We've been discussing that up and down for the past years, and we made lots of progress and sometimes a couple of steps backwards also. But that is obviously a very strategic task for Plone, because that is one. But also visibility to non-developers. For example, the conference having the conference open for decision makers, and not like only technical tasks, but also making talks about how to manage your content properly, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, or Plone for managers. Yes. So it's a bit preaching to the choir when we've been active, when we're trying to for ourselves to indeed participate with that. But indeed, it's. I must say, Philip, if you'd asked me 2 or 3 years ago, I would have been like, that's not fair because of a pandemic, but I would have been, oh no, there's so much work to do. I must say now, since 6 or 8 months, I must say, I see a lot of progress towards that. Should we? No, we'll do it later. So. The very good, I mean, it's not there yet, but we have way better documentation than what we used to have. The contributing section that now has been put up there. If you now see at Volto, the Plone distributions that we started this year, again, thanks to Erico, who created an add-on and for that and demonstrated how the profiles thing works. So that's also in progress. Yeah. There's a lot of things, and something else really ridiculous maybe, but 5 to 10 years ago, 10 years ago, let's put 10 years. 10 years ago, Plone was this enormous beast with 150 modules, and it was very confusing. And to install it, paraphrasing some people, if you didn't know already some Python or Python packaging or how this whole works. And I think the complexity of Plone has been catched up by the complexity of the JavaScript front-end developer community, where you now also have like 1 gigabyte source installs on your in your project folder with node modules directories and everything else, and 10 secret incantations to get Webpack running again to build a front end. Also making a bit too black and white. But I must say that the Plone Classic UI backend story at least starts to seem a bit less complicated again, just in relation to the complexity of the front end community, building even greater and nicer and better, but also bigger and more complex things.
Yeah, but we are approaching it the right way. To improve approachability of this really two running application stack, two different ways to install parts of these applications, using the Docker container setups that people are working on. That is for me that is a very strategic task, and people are working on that. So these resources are allocated in the right way. Let's take a step back, because strategic tasks, that's also something official. So the sprint in Bonn is a strategic sprint. That means that the organizers of the sprint request funding from the Plone Foundation. The Plone Foundation gets basically a quote from the framework team, or I'm not sure because things are moving in a way. At some point,
might
maybe
go to the steering circle.
That should be the steering circle at some point, to say, okay, yeah, this is really strategic for these and these reasons, and then different amounts of money are available for these sprints, for travel, rent for rooms and stuff like that. So that is how these sprints organized. But the tasks themselves, I picked three examples for things that were strategic to Plone, and they're very different. One is Volto itself. It is highly visible, so it improves visibility of Plone, and in that case, maybe the market share, because the approachability as an editor, as a developer, yada yada, depends on if you're a React developer, obviously improves approachability of Plone, but it's really really visible and has a really high impact for Plone the project. And we long ago we decided that it's a matter of not life and death, but we really want that. We really wanted to invest that time. But the point is, it is a ton of work. It is not a low-hanging fruit. And what I love, I burn for these small things that are strategic but low-hanging. And there are not many, but there is one. I'm getting to that. Another one that is not low-hanging and strategic, but is the Python 3 porting. Obviously, that was a matter of life and death, but it's not visible, because if you're a developer or user, you just expect that. That's not something like Volto. Hey, cool, new front end, I can work with that. It's just something you expect. If it's not there, this project is dead. If it's not running on Python 3, I'm not going to use that. And
it's even difficult, indeed, to communicate to end users or IT managers or application managers who use a CMS and then get, you need to upgrade to a new version because the old programming language is gone and it will cost you like this. And people are like, but why did you move to a new programming language? And then we have to say, yes, well, sorry, that's the Python Software Foundation. That's the creators and the stewards of the programming language. Why did you choose that language that has a breaking 223 that costs us so much money?
Well, they're still they're not using Windows NT3 or Windows 95 anymore as well. So they should, if they're in any capacity. IT profession, they should be used to software update cycles.
Of course, that's the whole thing. There is a very good reason that we moved from Python 2 to Python 3, and there are many very good reasons why there were breaking changes to advance the programming language. And also, if you see now the new things we can use in the latest Python 3 language as language features that also benefit the Plone stack again.
The speed benefit is impressive. But it in that way, it is very strategic, but it's not visible, and it is high impact if you don't do that, because then you kill the project. The third example I picked is having a list of Plone add-ons. And that is such a simple no-brainer. It was so simple that we made it so complicated that we didn't have that for years and years, because we're always overthinking it. If anyone remembers the Paragon project or the Plone Software Center, which was an add-on developed for Plone 1, I think, even, and stuff like that. So, but it's a perfect example. If you do that right and don't overthink it, it is a low-hanging fruit. Has high visibility and a high impact, because it gives users who make decisions about projects, about using Plone, the chance to see, oh, this is a good add-on. This is an available add-on. There are two solutions. The one that you're sharing is the Plone
I'm plugging it. I'm plugging it again. I showed it. I think.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other one is the awesome list, which is even simpler because you didn't have to code a single line. It's
Help
just
me.
text.
GitHub.com
awesome. Google for Plone and awesome, and then you'll find it.
That's better.
There is an awesome Volto and an awesome Plone lit. That's a redacted,
Awesome Plone.
not redacted. It's
There it is.
Yeah, it's a curated list of add-ons. So these are solution. Both were not like really a lot of work. They didn't add any complexity to the stack or technical depth. But they have a high impact and high visibility and very strategic, I think. So I love these two projects because it means when you start working on that at one sprint, you might have a chance to actually finish that during that sprint. And so when I go to a sprint, like the Beethoven sprint next week, not next week, like in
next
3
month.
weeks,
Next month.
I thought about picking a topic, and I'd love to work on. That's my plug now for what I'm not telling anyone to do that, because I'm telling you I'm trying to work on that. If anyone's helping, I'm happy. Is to update and improve the demo sites that we have, demo Plone.org and the classic demo Plone.org, with better and more example content. It's like one level, and more add-ons. And that would be so cool to have to demo Plone. And I know that this is easy and possible, but it has a couple of dependencies that need to be fixed and done. But it would be so nice to not only show Plone, okay, this is a news item, and this is a page, and this is a Volto site with the default blocks that are shipped, or 2 or 3 add-on blocks, but okay, actually have renditions, have examples for these content, these blocks and pages filled with these blocks, and additional add-ons like EA in classic EA faceted navigation, easy form, and whatnot. Available
Mosaic,
Mosaic, and stuff that you use for your day-to-day projects. These would be. I think that's a high impact, low-hanging, high visibility, and it adds no technical depth. At least not really terrible technical depth that you need to carry with you for next decade or stuff like that.
So you're talking about distributions, Philip?
Basically, yeah. That would be one approach. The other is just hack it until it works. But obviously, distributions is the better solution for most of that. That's why I'm so happy that they exist.
Indeed, the work was started in the Alpine City Sprint in February. The switch is already here for distribution, but still some work has to be done. Also by us, I think, Philip. Erica started with the Plone distribution feature to have it in Plone Core. But indeed, what you say, you want to demo add-ons, you want to demo also content in there. So we want to create like kind of pre-packaged Plone setups with a number of add-ons, with a setup, and also with demo content. And for that, we also need to have a kind of way to export and import the content fully, which is a kind of a nice round trip to the UID thingy I mentioned, because that makes also a part of it. Because we would really like it for people to say, okay, I have a Plone site, I'm adding these and these add-ons, I'm creating a bit of default content. I now export the content to a single bundled file, whatever, that is somewhere on disk, and then I can package my add-ons and my content and have that as a kind of distribution, as a starting point or as a demo for other people to show what you can do with the CMS.
Okay.
We're not there yet, but I have this very strong feeling that we will have that in 6 to 8 months, at most.
I agree, and that is good. That's good for the market share. I've no numbers about market share. It's like the market share in the heart, maybe.
Yeah.
I have a couple more examples of things that might be strategic if someone wants to work on that. Obviously, stuff people already work on is the development setup for starting developers, especially using Docker containers and the development setup with Docker containers. Stuff that we talked about last episode and that we will definitely revisit at some point. But what I really love to have, and also little technical depth unless we put it into the core where we were there before, will be an alternative new theme for Volto. And I know it already exists. It's called Light Theme, and it's not super finished and polished, but it would be so cool to have very cool to have Volto with two different themes. Maybe shipped at some point, but until then, as an add-on, say, okay, there's a different theme. It's also great to have this as coding example. You can look at that. Oh, how did they do the search button so that it fills the whole screen or stuff like that? Different things. Putting that in. A theme gallery is obviously too much to ask, but a alternative theme to Volto, that would be, I think, highly strategic task to actually finish that. Obviously, it's not that simple. There's a lot of stuff to do there to get that done. But I'd love to have that, and the same goes for Classic, by the way. But there are a couple of themes in the theming training.
Yes, there are indeed. And also, I should mention, we're not pushing this very hard, but for example, the PloneConf 2023 website, if you're curious about the source, you can just go to the Plone organization and type 2023.ploneconf.org, and you can see what the people of Code Syntax have done for modifications to the core Plone release and core Volto release, and what they've customized to add all those things, because this is open source, people.
Yeah. Same goes for plone.org itself, which has a custom theme, a ton of custom blocks that you can look at the code and be inspired by. But there's like two more things just to say that these really need. I wouldn't say need to be done. Obviously, they need to be done, but I don't want to try to force anyone to do it. But something that Jens and others have been doing a lot is triaging tickets. Looking at old tickets, is that actually still valid for Plone 6, or is that something Plone 4 or 5-ish? There's a huge list of tickets on GitHub, and going through them and closing those that are no longer valid, and maybe fixing some low-hanging fruits there. That is obviously a strategic task, because people report bugs because they encounter them, and they hope that the community at some point fixes them. Sometimes I do the same. I just report a bug. Sometimes I fix them, and I'm always really happy when someone else fixes a bug that I report, maybe now or maybe 5 years later. It doesn't really until it hurts me that much. I'm happy if it gets fixed later. And also writing, or even more important, updating existing documentation to newer versions. That is obviously a strategic task. It is not that high visible because this chapter changed and now reflects the current changes in this and that widget and that and that. That's not something you see instantly, but it's a real blocker if you get into Plone, you want to work with it on a professional basis, and the documentation doesn't reflect the current project state. Yeah. That is
and we used to have these tune-up Fridays, or also monthly things where we would together clean up issues and tickets and look at that. But indeed, you can say this is part of a strategic sprint, but I think it's strategic ongoing work to do that. Because indeed you can help. Also, if you're not, I also myself, I know quite well what's going on, but I'm not a full-time, always with my head in a code developer. But even I can help with looking up stuff. What I'm really good at is looking up stuff and figuring out what other people wrote and then relating to those things. So also that, for example, for last week with these issues with Plone Mosaic, I helped there not by diving into the code or helping, but because there was a problem with this RCI, with the tests not running anymore. Because we updated pip to a new major version, and one of the options of pip had changed. That took out our testing. I figured that out, posted a note about, hey, I think this is going on. Let's try and see if it works. And indeed, it was one tiny part of the whole solution, but the tests continued running, and the real developers, as I would call them, figured out what was wrong in JavaScript and added stuff and were able to validate it. And that's my small part there, figuring out some information, adding there, looking through the tickets, maybe doing a new merge from master into a feature branch, adding a few nodes there, and then helping people helping other people to move along and do the final fixing.
Yeah. So to wrap things up, we're approaching the 1 hour mark. If you think about working on something in Plone, maybe keep these things in mind. Approachability of Plone is something very important. That is already high impact. If it's visible, it's good. If it's not, it might be still strategic. But ask yourself, if you work on something, in which ways, on which levels does that help, or does it only scratch your own itch, which is fine, which is totally fine. I'm not berating that at all. Yeah. And if it's low hanging, then just do it, because these things can be done during one sprint. It's like we have to do a 2-year project and create a new team for that. If it's a low hanging thing with a high impact and strategic value, that is something that really needs to be done then.
So Philip, to wrap up, let's go to the list of things that have already been suggested and which have been put by people into the sprint document, or has been added as strategic as things to work on at the Beethoven sprint that might inspire people from actual problems that have also been reported and that they want to add. So for example, Plone 6.1, what will be worked on next month if people have time for it, because I know when you're done the sprint, sometimes things change and you wanted to work on A, but you get sucked into B and C and D. But indeed, the container row grid block that also needs to go into core. Quanta toolbar, maybe already for Plone 6.1. Drag and drop support is something that has been lacking in some areas in Volto, which people really love to improve. Relations control panel.
Katja is working on that.
Because there is a very cool relations control panel for classic UI, but it's not in Volto yet, and I think it needs a lot of custom work because it's just those simple fields that get translated automatically. Sitemaps for larger websites, because if your website really is huge, like it's the size of a research institute, then your sitemap will also get swallowed by all the content and be very slow. So that's something people want to improve for Plone 6.1. And then that's also just a few of the things that are for our next upcoming 6.1 release. For Plone 7, indeed, the whole theming story, I already gave it away a little bit with a small change to put a theme in an add-on. But the story is way bigger, of course, because that's Quanta, which Victor already announced last year, where you really want to open up the theming to not be only stuck, I think, here to semantic UI, but be able to use any kind of framework in there, which has been a story and a wish that has crept up for at least 4 or 5 times. I think that I have looked into the news and what people were working on in Volto in the last years. And of course, indeed strategic. Our Plone roadmap and releases approach, document our release policy, and write down the Plone roadmap for 6.1 and 7 is indeed something that will also happen at the Beethoven sprint. And I think we will continue the discussions we already had at Innsbruck on this. With, of course, again, the architecture model, which is important in the back end, that also will get discussed there.
Yeah, there's also something that bit me in a project recently. The hero block needs some improvements, and there's like work that was done by Tiberio and others that needs to be finished to get that in, because it's not extendable. So that's just a tiny thing, but it's a lot of code. It's not super visible, but when you're actually working on that, it's a pain, because the hero block otherwise would be great to extend, and I had to write something custom, because that was just not possible.
Yes. Other strategic things, of course, have been added, like the documentation. Again, install docs is something we're still lacking, because we're also still trying to figure out the best optimal installation story there for which target group. Volto docs will of course get updates, and I think Steve Percy hopes that we can do enough work that we can finally release the Plone 6 docs as the official new docs.plone.org.
Yeah.
So if we can really pull that off together in a month, that would be really great, because there's a lot of work still to be done, but already so much has been added to the Plone docs that they really deserve it now to be our main primary docs link.
Yeah. So what are you going to work on?
I am not going to say anything about it yet, because I really have no clue. There are so many things. There are small photo things that I want to add, where I think this shouldn't be too hard. Like you said, it's an itch. It's low hanging fruit, and it can't be that difficult. So it would be really great to have that in strategic. But I know, again, I will be pulled into other stuff as well. I'm also, because I know with Beethoven Sprint, a lot of people have asked to come, but the office space is really, really cramped. Not because it's really cramped, but for the kit concept company, it's the perfect size. But suddenly have like 30 or 40 or 50 people to a normal, also working remote company.
They wouldn't fit in my
exactly.
office space.
Philip, how would you invite 40 people to Startzel headquarters?
Yeah, exactly.
In your bedroom.
Exactly.
And the cellar.
Yeah.
No, so
when we had Sprint in Munich, we obviously did that at the university, and we had huge rooms, so we were able to accommodate more than 50 people at a Sprint.
Yes.
But the location in Bonn is nice,
Yes.
and I don't want them to rent some anonymous huge office space hall. That's annoying. So it's okay.
Yes,
It's
but what I want
also
to
it needs to be manageable and managed.
yeah, they
So
tried.
join
I know.
remotely.
They try to ask that for the university, but the university is renovating themselves in Bonn at the moment for the next year, so they have a lack of space. But we really want to push, I think, also remote access or remote participating, and that's what you said. What you're working on? Well, then for me it would be okay. Let's see if I can spend, if a few people at the Sprint can spend a bit more, 1-2 hours a day, helping remote sprinters to stay connected. That's also a very strategic and valuable thing to do.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, there's a lot. There's always too much. There's too much to do at the Sprint, whether it's strategic or not. So I'll keep my cards closed and just see what happens. And what is needed at the Sprint as well.
I already gave away what I'm going to work on. I hope I'm going to get somewhere with the demo sites, and obviously need some help from other people with that, especially the Plone distributions, export, import, and so on, which is me. Oh, damn. Okay, let's call it a day. Thanks for
Philip.
tuning in. Thanks, Fred. Enjoy the rest of the World Plone Day, and see you in Bonn, Finland, at the conference in Basque Country, and wherever Plone is happening.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See you next month.